Are you ready to stop the self-sabotage and create the life you desire? Well, in order for that to happen, you need to break free from the bad beliefs that are holding your success hostage. You need to optimize the stress by turning it into extra energy for success. And those hurtful habits? Well, we need to give that pain a purpose for progress. Welcome to Stop the Self-Sabotage and Create the Life You Desire podcast.
I have a question for you. Which one do you think as a woman you are more skilled at, and which one you think you get stuck processing? Sadness or anger? And joining me today is certified hypnotist and Harmony health coach, Angie from Harmony Harbor.
Health coach, life coach.
Life coach, well, mental health. Yeah, mental health. So, Angie, which one do you think for yourself, for your clients, which one's easier to process and which one do y'all get stuck in?
I would say that it's easier to process sadness in some ways. Like there's different caveats, but anger is one. And again, it depends on the person, but for me personally, and for a lot of women, I think it's harder to process anger.
Yeah. And in fact, we're talking about this today. When anger and life gets too hot to handle, we're talking about this today at Angie's request. She's the one who came up with the idea. Let's talk about this one. And why in August, Angie? Why'd you want to talk about this in August?
Hot out. Well, not everywhere. Like in Australia, I think it's the opposite of there. It's winter, but in a lot of places, it's pretty hot in August.
Yes.
And some people can handle the heat more than others, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, here's the science behind that. Hot weather increases our heart rate. When our heart rate increases, we get very uncomfortable. When we get uncomfortable with an increased heart rate, it is easier to lash out at others. Now, let's take that the other direction. We're in the hemisphere where, January, February, it's flipping cold. And so what happens there is lack of sunlight, which produces serotonin, which allows you to be able to cope with stressful emotions such as sadness. And this is the reason why people can be sad in cold climates and angry in hot climates. Unfortunately, there's a challenge as women is we can be taught how to be sad, not necessarily handle it in a healthy way, but how to be sad. But we're not taught about anger. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the insights you've got for us, Angie?
Well, my mind's going a lot of different directions. I think about like my husband, Steve, and how I have an infrared sauna. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it gets to 170 degrees. And it's not near the same as like if you were to go outside, it's a different kind of heat, but right. 170 is 170. And the whole idea is for you to sweat profusely while you're sitting there releasing toxins and stuff. And I just love my sauna. Like I love getting in there, and I do it every single day for a half an hour, Mm-hmm. And Steve, on the other hand, like he does not look forward to it at all. And he's also a Leo. His birthday is August 20th. But not that has anything to do with heat, but the lion, the
right.
lion that can have a temper. But anyway, so he hates getting in there, but he does it because he knows it's good for him. So he'll do it on like once a week, but he goes in for 20 minutes and he can't wait to get out, Mm-hmm. And then I also think of a client just recently who he owns a business where he's outside in the sun a lot and working in the heat and sweat. And he's like, I just, at the end of the day, I'm just worn out and, I'm fretting about it and everything. And so we were talking about it, like, well, how can you handle the heat and not just be so drained at the end of the day and then lash out at people because of it?
Right.
And so I offered him this suggestion. I'm like, to do what's called a positive intelligence rep, or a PQ rep, which all that is where we get into contact with our body sensation. You just get in tune with whatever it is that we're feeling. Could be a negative emotion, or it could be a body sensation like heat. So we did that, and we came up with a thing that, instead of getting upset at the heat, to instead see it as every time I sweat, every drop of sweat that I drop, that I'm losing weight. I'm getting more,
right,
and I'm actually increasing my prosperity. There was a connection with that. So
okay.
So anyway, he didn't quite do that association with the heat, but what he did do was, every time he felt that sensation of heat and he started to get like just upset, he took a deep breath and he connected with that body sensation. And that is also
Yes.
a PQ rep. It's just, you can use the breath to do that.
Yes.
So I thought of, like the heat getting outside, it doesn't bother me. Or like sitting in a sauna for a half hour every day. I do that because I want to, not because I have to. So everybody's tolerance of heat is different.
Yes.
We can, no matter what the body sensation, whether it's heat or anger, that we can actually just sense into that. And then it sort of lets go of us.
Okay. So what's your working definition of anger?
So we all have energy. We all have movements of energy, which are, to me, that's what an emotion is. It's a movement of energy. And anger is a vigorous movement of energy, as opposed to, say, peace. Peace is a more slow moving energy that feels more calm in our body, but anger is a fast moving energy. If we can start to see it that way, it's just an expression of, like, we want to, we can see red, for example, or what have you. I think it's a different experience for everybody to an extent, but so it's a fast moving energy that leaves us feeling out of control.
Okay. Yes, that's one of the characteristics of anger, is that it can leave us feeling out of control if we don't know how to control it and the message that it has for us. So where sadness is very passive, very receptive, anger is very assertive. It is asking us to take action on something. And anger is a bottom-up emotion, which means that we need to do something with the body before we can work our way up to the mental level. Because when you're right and you're like, it's fast moving. So,
and another nuance that you just reminded me of is that usually anger is a sign that something's not fair, that in our perception, something is not fair.
Yes. When anger is healthy, it simply means a boundary has been violated. So then we need to look at, well, what's the boundary, but what's inside that boundary? What do we value? We can get angry that it is so hot outside, and what we value is our well-being that's inside that boundary. So it's whenever we're experiencing anger, we either need to do something about the boundary, or we need to do something about what's being valued. And when you were talking about your client doing the breathing exercises, that's bottom up. And so it's like, okay, what do we need to do to begin to bring our allostatic load, which is our stress that we're experiencing, back to a manageable level? So yeah, you're right. Anger is very fast moving, and it's going, hey, something here is not right. Now, unfortunately for us as women, we're not taught boundaries. We're not taught that we're valuable unless we overperform many times. And so instead of experiencing anger, it's easier to switch to sadness But sadness is a very passive, it's a very receptive experience. And that's the reason why it can be so hard to move out of sadness, because that's not what you were being called to do. You were being called to look at your boundaries and look at what you value. And if you can't do that, then moving into sadness isn't going to assist you. It's like going, oh, I'm lonely, so I'm going to go have something to eat. It's not what we're looking for. So the idea is then, because when anger or when life gets to be too much, then breathe, give ourselves space, but then going, what is it I need to do about this? So when was one of the last times you were angry? Because I know for me, it was just in the last 24 hours, but what about you, Angie? When was one of the last times you were angry?
I'll answer that. And also, let's put a space holder. Sometimes, like, the listeners will hear a word and they'll get hooked on that, and then they lose track of what we're saying. So can you explain bottom up?
Yes. Yeah. Bottom up, top down. Bottom up says that we have a hierarchy to how we want to handle things. And so bottom up would be first the physical realm, the physical body. Then after that, the energy we're experiencing. And then after that, the mental level. Top down is whenever we're going to address the mental first, then the emotions that are being triggered from the mental level, and then the actions that we want to take. So typically, whenever we're looking at going after a goal, we're going to need to be able to create that vision, to create the strategy, and then the tactics to fulfill that goal top down.
Right.
But then we need to be able to address the obstacles as they arise, bottom up. So when the system, when our physical body is incongruent with our end results, when it is out of harmony, when the allostatic load, the allocation that we have is not there, we cannot think our way out of it. And we cannot feel our way out of it until we actually give the body some space and a place to feel secure, to get its footing again. So that's what it's meant by bottom up.
Right. Thanks. And then the other thing, allostatic load, like you've said it twice today, and I've never heard you say it before. So
allostatic load, think of a bank account.
What's allostatic mean?
Allostatic load is simply a word for stress. Okay. So think of a bank account. You can make deposits, you can make withdrawals. So there are some people who have a high tolerance in an allostatic load, which means they are able to handle high pressure situations because they continued to make deposits into their account that allowed them to increase their capacity. As women, no one taught us typically how to increase our capacity for the emotion of anger. Sadness, oh, we can be sad all day long, talking to our girlfriends about what's not working right. And okay. But what about when we're ticked off and gosh darn it, we don't want this to continue any further? Well, it's hard to make a withdrawal if you don't have deposits. And in the same way, we can increase our load for workouts. Most women, when they work out their physical body, they do endurance. Nothing wrong with that. Doing some cardio makes your heart stronger. But there's now a direct correlation between the body and your capacity on your allocation, on your allostatic load. And if you want to continue to endure situations, make sure you get all the cardio you can. I don't know about our listeners, but I've endured some crap long enough. So
more strength.
Yes.
I mean, that's because I do weights,
Yes, I do the free weights also.
Yeah.
And They are finding
And cardio. And cardio.
We have to have both. Cardio is for our heart.
Right.
But how strong do we want our heart to be to continue to carry around this sadness? We need the strength to be able to pick things or people up mentally and move them to a place where it is secure for us. In fact, I love the fact that if you ever see anybody eye roll mentally, they are taking that person and they are taking them out of their internal arena.
Sure.
Yeah. It's actually a sign of contempt. Not a good one, but
no.
But sometimes like, that's what we have to do.
Shit. That's kind of
exactly.
Oh,
yeah.
Like, here we go.
Yes. But the more that you can mentally pick somebody up and move them out of your environment in a way where they will no longer impact you, the more you can do that, the stronger you are physically. There's a direct correlation between the two. And so we need women that not only can endure the grit to stick with their goals, but also have the strength to go, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to violate that boundary. That's, yeah, we're complete with that. So did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a loaded question. Okay.
So when's the last time you got upset?
I'm trying to think about that. So I'll give you a story to answer that. Okay. It's just interesting. Since February of this year, I have been doing a healing circle for people, in which we take different categories of life. And it's from Alex Lloyd's book, The Healing Code, you know? And so there's different categories. And he said, if you cover all of these, there's 12 of them. So one per month. Right. So anyway, just on August 1st, I do this the first Tuesday of the month. The topic was patience versus, so you start with the virtue, and then the other side of it was anger, impatience, and frustration. Okay. So patience versus anger, frustration, and impatience. And so what's interesting is that I have been diligent since February to do the healing code. So I create a healing code and then I do it myself, you know?
Right.
Well, when it came to anger, the one I did August 1st, like I totally forgot to do it. It just went out of my mind. And so there was a part that's like, anger doesn't feel like safe to, you know, maybe I want to hold on to that anger on some level, right? Subconsciously, but I actually picked it up yesterday. So it took me a few days to even get it in my consciousness to do it, which I just find that very odd because I've been so diligent, you know?
Right.
So I'm like, what's going on with that? So I was aware enough to know, oh, there's something here. And so for me, anger is not something that I feel very often, truthfully. I really don't. But the frustration piece, which is, I think, a cousin to anger, you know, that has been a part of my experience. So that's what I'm actually working on the healing code. It doesn't matter if it's frustration, impatience. Frustration and impatience have been a piece of my story.
Okay.
More so than outright anger. Now, I will get angry. Okay, so let me think about when I was angry. I get the most angry when I feel like I'm being gaslit.
Oh, yeah.
That angers me. And it makes me want to just like come through and say, do you think I'm an idiot? You know, like, I mean, okay, so I don't want to get all political, but I mean, just the last 3.5 years has been a lot of that for me, you know?
Yeah. There's a lot of people that were deemed conspiracy theorists that now it's come through to be true, what they were talking about.
And then things are coming to light politically that are very upsetting, but you know, but not surprising. Like I'm not surprised by any of what's coming to light, really.
Right.
And it's not that I'm some skeptic or like, you know, it's just that for me, I trust my intuition. You know, there's this knowing of that's bullshit, you know, or that's propaganda. So I'm just, I don't know. My character seems to be on alert for that.
Okay.
I do follow my heart. I do. I follow my intuition and my heart. I know who I am. And so if something feels out of alignment, and somebody tries telling me otherwise, like if there's someone were to say, oh, well, this is the way it is. And in my heart, like, I absolutely know that that's not true. So then you might get an eye roll from me on that. Oh my God.
Here we go.
Yeah, right. Right.
Yes.
So I don't know. I speak from the heart.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your question.
It does.
I mean, just recently, like, I have to monitor how much I allow myself to listen to certain things, even if I believe they're the truth, right? Because I have certain people that I do listen to for news, and yet it's very upsetting.
Okay.
So, I like, if I'm angry, I've always said the one who angers us controls us. The one who angers us controls us. The one who makes us fear controls us as well.
Whoever controls the emotions controls the outcome of the conversation. So this is the reason why I want my anger and my fear under my control.
Right.
It's not that I don't want it, because
feel it. Gotta feel it.
Fear is very healthy. If I hear footsteps coming up behind me on a dark parking lot, I want to know about it. So I'm going to have these emotions. It's not that I don't want to have anger. It's that I will have it, but I need to get the message. So you had brought up a couple of things. Sometimes we feel very justified in hanging on to our anger. And you are correct. There are some pretty horrific things that have happened out there. And when people say forgive, there are some that are going, no, I don't think so. And that's because they've confused forgiveness with reconciliation, or forgiveness with forgetting. So I can forgive, which basically says that I'm releasing it, but I learned the lesson. So hanging on to that anger, I don't want to hang on to the anger. I want to hang on to the boundary.
Right. I was going to say, because hanging on to the anger, just like with the healing code thing, anger is anger, frustration, and patience. When we're out of alignment in that area, it affects the immune system the most of any other emotion. Because when something made me angry the other day. I don't even remember what it was. But if I get angry for any sustained period of time, that's where it's not healthy for our body at all.
No, because can either cause inflammation or suppression of the immune system, depending on what your attachment style is.
Because we're all that energy, it takes a lot of energy to be angry. It does. And so anger is diverted away from our healing,
Well, it's diverted away from what we find worthy and valuable. So to hang on, instead of hanging on to the anger, hang on to the message that it had, that there was a boundary being violated and that there was something very valuable. You also talked about frustration, and frustration we can see as a subset of anger. And it simply means, in the world of psychology, untapped potential. I can get really frustrated with myself or with others when I know we can do more.
Right.
So what's the message there? The message there is, well, where might I need assistance in being able to turn the frustration into energy to move forward?
Right. Right.
And then impatience says that, yes, we want an end result faster than, for whatever reason, it's ready to give us, like planting a seed in your garden and you go out the next day and you dig it up to see if it's done anything yet. And so it's being able to say, okay, I can stick with this till it begins to give fruit. But I also need to know a timeline, because sometimes we can have patience when actually we should have called it and said, no,
Right.
this should have been able to produce by now.
Right. It's a discernment,
And it's a discernment that we can't make on our own, because if we could, we'd already have what we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
This is when we need to bring in other experts and authority figures who do transfer of power and go, well, this is what you need to know about this. If you planted this seed, I planted a garden this year. No sooner did I plant it than the dog dug it up.
Oh, no.
So I had to know what I was looking for as far as if there were any seeds left in the ground, because I was going to continue to water.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like, okay, I still needed to know. I needed to reach out to somebody in the know to say, okay, how long should I be doing this before I go, oh, he tore up everything. Yeah. So, yeah, when you're talking about frustration, I was pissed off. Oh, gosh, just a couple of days ago with the new puppy.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when, as I was sharing with you before we got started today, I learned that he has the ability to open the bathroom door by pawing at the doorknob until it turns, which, hey, what's the big deal, except that he has a passion for toilet paper and has learned how to take the entire roll. He's very smart, off the toilet paper holder and then, drag it in. He doesn't swallow any of it. He just tears it everywhere. And then I walk into my living room to find that there's toilet paper confetti all over the place. And that stuff is not cheap anymore.
Oh, gosh.
And after going through 3 rolls in one day, yeah, I was feeling a little frustrated, but that was simply telling me that I needed to do something about what I valued. There was a boundary being crossed. And so now I'm going to be installing a different doorknob.
Mm-hmm.
And I've hidden the toilet paper until we get past the stage. And the trainer I'm working with says, oh, it'll only be about 2 or 3 months. Okay. But in that moment, when I walked in and I found the 3rd thing in toilet paper shredded almost everywhere because he does it quick.
Wow.
Okay. I was completely dysregulated. My system. And so I'm trying to remember to breathe. And instead, I just started hollering. Now, afterwards, it was like, okay, puppies, dogs, move on from the moment. You give it a few minutes later and they're done with it. I needed to be able to do the same thing. But I needed to do bottom up because my system was dysregulated and I needed to get out and I needed to do a brisk walk and get myself to where I felt like I had moved from crisis to stabilization to regulation. And then after that, the intelligence shows up. But sometimes you can't do that in the moment, and it's okay. Mm-hmm. But as you were saying, Angie, if we hang on to it, that's when we start getting toxic.
Right. Like, I know that Shirzad, he's the creator of positive intelligence. He just talks about how anytime we have saboteurs come in, that he says they're an indication of, just like with anger, the hand's on the hot stove. Our hand is on the hot stove. We don't need to keep it there very long to get the message and to learn from it, And it's not spiritual bypassing either, because I've looked at this, you just avoiding feelings here.
And something else to bring up is that some of us who have been through trauma learn to disassociate from our bodies. Mm-hmm. So we don't always know when we're having the emotion. Mm-hmm. And it takes work to create a secure place to say it's okay for these emotions to show up. But then when they do, they pretty well show up with increased intensity in the very beginning. I remember there would be times where I'd be like, wow, am I upset And it might take me 72 hours to process an experience before I even decided that, yes, I was upset over something that had happened. And by then, the anger, which is in the moment saying, hey, something valuable has happened, it was gone. So now that my anger does show up at times, it can be pretty strong, but I know that that's all part of the process. And I don't necessarily, I can allow myself to feel it, but I don't necessarily have to act on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The other day, I got really mad at Steve. I mean, doesn't our main person get the brunt of our feelings, it seems?
They can, because they're the closest to us to trigger us.
Right.
And they're also the closest to us to where we feel like it's okay to let loose.
So I'm trying to even remember what happened. I don't think it really matters. It was just, the feeling was, this is what makes me angry. And it doesn't happen very often, but it's this feeling of blaming and shaming me for something that I didn't even realize. Like, for me, it was not a big deal, I remember what it was. So we had this transformation game at our house on Friday night. Well, he was saying before, he's like, well, I'm just coming home from work on Friday night, and I'm tired usually on Friday, and I don't feel like a house full of people, And so I had told him we were having it. It's a long story. I wasn't planning to have it at the house, but I ended up having it at the house. I was supposed to do it at the business lodge, and that fell through. And so I had it on a Friday night, and it's just a lot of work. And so anyway, I understood what he was saying. And I'm like, because I wanted to have an extra table downstairs. That's his terrain. That's his terrain. That's his man cave. And I'm like, it's one night, and I said, you don't have to go down. I'll go down, and like, we serve wine and different stuff. And I'll wait on the table down there. And he's like, no, I don't want to have it. So my little inner child is like, well, why did you tell me that? Anyway, it was unreasonable on my part, but I still felt in the moment sort of blamed and shamed a little bit, for even having the thing. And so here, like I said, it doesn't happen a whole lot, but when it does, when I feel like they're just not getting me, somebody's just not getting me, and it's usually somebody close, like Steve. It's usually Steve. Dawn, I'm not proud of this, but like, when I feel cornered, when I feel trapped, and I bet everybody can relate to this on some level. Can I cuss on here?
Sure you can. I say fuck all the time.
So what I say is, fuck you, Steve. I'll just and I'm pushed to the edge if I say that.
Right.
So the next morning I woke up, and I did have a learning from this, the fact that he wasn't wrong in this case, that it was me. Like, I had a bullyish energy that I should have checked in with him a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, are you okay if we have it? I was going on the assumption that it was okay to have this because we've had it in the past.
Right.
He hadn't been working a full-time job either.
Okay.
On a Friday night.
Right.
So, I mean, I was wrong, and I apologized. I said, I'm sorry, and I really meant it. So, I don't know why.
Sometimes when one party or both are committed to misunderstanding each other. Okay.
It happens
because it most definitely it happens, because we feel like if we understand, then we're going to have to acquiesce. We're going to have to agree, and we don't want to give any ground. So we will not hear the person. We will not understand their communication, and it's all on purpose. And then, we have a breakdown. Then we look at how healthy is the bid to repair. What afterwards? So, we all know couples who can fight constantly, but yet that still seems like they have a healthy relationship. it's because they know how to repair the relationship.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And we do not fight constantly. But
No,
we know
no.
how to repair it when we do.
Yes. Well, like
Because,
you know how to repair when, like you said, you were like, I was the one in the wrong.
yeah.
So sometimes, yes, our anger pushes us to the limit. And when we're pushed to that limit, we're not able to see that there are other choices. And when we feel like our freedom has been taken away,
Mm-hmm.
that happened on the five motivators: status, control, freedom, relationships, truth, justice, and what's fair. The middle finger is freedom, and we feel like our freedom has been taken away, we
Right.
flip everybody off.
That's right. That's what happened. Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's not that we're not supposed to get angry. It's that, okay, what's the message here? And then how do we use the message to be able to move forward? That's what we're sharing with all the listeners today. And hot weather increases, getting hot under the collar. And for women, especially since we're taught to suppress and repress, then we can keep pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing it down. But if you think about standing in the ocean about, chest high water, and you've got this huge beach ball that you're trying to hold under the water, and the waves are just knocking you around. At some point, that beach ball is going to get away from you. It's going to break the surface, and it is going to slap you as hard as it can right in the face. And that's what happens with our anger when we continue to dysregulate it and hold it down. Well, we get dysregulated. At some point, it's going to get away from us. And when it does, out.
Yeah.
So,
Feelings
yeah.
repressed never die. There's a book out there about that. Because
Yes.
it's not just anger, really, isn't it? I mean, it's negative emotions. If we repress any of them.
If we don't know how to use the message that's coming through on them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And for women, sadness, which can be our go-to because we are such feelers and such nurturers, sadness simply says that there's been a loss and we're grieving it.
Right.
I mean, I can be sad over the fact that I lost a parking place if the lot's really crowded.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or I can be sad that, somebody that I thought was a friend and it's just not working out anymore. So there's some sort of loss that we need to be able to grieve. But we also want to say, okay, what is it that on the grieving process, and there's no limit on grief, but there is on sadness.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how can I transition from one into the other? Because if we stay in a perpetual state of sadness, we lose our voice. We lose the ability to take up space and place through our power. And a lot of times when we see people shrink internally, they'll get larger externally to try to harmonize it out.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I know this is about anger, but you raised a good point about sadness and grief. Because I just wrote about this the other day. Saturday, I was feeling like I missed Maddie, my daughter. And then I was writing in my journal and I'm like, but I don't feel like this is a victim response, that I was feeling sad. I was missing her. But it felt more like a grief response, and then I thought, am I sabotaging myself right now? And I'm like, no, you're not. This is more of a grief. And I'm not feeling sorry for myself. Like it wasn't that. It was just a feeling that came up, just like anger. And instead of denying it, I just felt it and breathed through it. And that's okay. Like to me, that's key to not giving our power away to any negative emotion.
Yes, because sadness is going to be all around the loss. Grieving is the adjustment you go through after the loss.
Right. Right.
And there are some losses that we will always grieve
Right.
to some level, like Maddie.
Right.
Yes. Right. But sadness keeps us focused on the loss itself.
Mm-hmm.
And we know through hypnosis, the RAS, the reticular activating system, whatever you focus on comes to fruition. So if you're continually focused on the loss, you're going to find more things that have been lost, right, and more things you will lose. So there is a transition to move from one to the next. Mm-hmm. Yeah, to go from sadness and then move into grief. Yeah. And it's okay to say there are some things where I don't want to have to adjust. Mm-hmm. It's not fair. I know that I will still find a way, but it's not fair. But the more we try to make the world a fair place, the more neurotic we will be.
Yeah.
Because it's not. It is so not.
There's a quote that I love about how life is difficult. Basically life is difficult. And the sooner when we can accept that, then it's no longer difficult, right? It's kind of, sorry, I don't remember who it is right off the top of my head, but it's kind of the same thing. When we have entitlement or expectations that life is supposed to go a certain way, because that's what makes you angry. Like if something doesn't happen the way you want it to happen.
Boundaries been violated.
Right. Mm-hmm. That like, to me, we got to learn how to adjust within ourselves, and find peace within ourselves, no matter what happens externally.
Yes. Peace means nothing missing, nothing broken. Mm-hmm. If we look at one of the original definitions. So why we can feel like we're broken for a while and things are definitely missed. We learn the message and how to move on. And this is the reason why people who've been through some of the biggest struggles when they come out the other side, they're actually some of the greatest leaders. Mm-hmm. The other day I was listening to somebody and she's like, oh my gosh. So yeah, I started just this past winter on coaching, and I was working on overcoming something myself personally. And within 4 months, my entire life changed, and it's so phenomenal. And I'm telling you, there's hope out there. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you know what? Yes, she's got a voice that definitely needs to be heard. But if you've just been working on something since January, and in that space of time, over 4 months, it turned around. There, unfortunately, is something bigger coming your way.
Yeah.
Because that's life. And so when you get through the next big thing, that's really when you're going to start being able to make an impact. Because right now, it's been a little too easy.
Yes. Isn't that how it is? Like when I first started in business, it felt like, oh, this is supposed to be, well, I didn't know, but I didn't think it would be as hard as it is. Like, in 2011, I left my corporate job, but I did it part-time for 3 years before that. But in 2011, February, I left my job and things were just going so easily. Like for 3 years, it was just like up, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is awesome. And then it wasn't. It happened, and
yep.
And it just, well, I'm like, and here it is, 2023. Mm-hmm. So 12 years later, and that's why I get frustrated. That's a key piece of my frustration. Like I should be further along. And, that belief of I should be further along. So the healing code to help me counteract the frustration and the impatience is really me choosing to say, this is what it comes down to, Dawn, that I am learning to really love and accept myself and be kind and be gentle. Mm-hmm. That no matter what's going on, because we can say those words, but to feel it in our heart, another story, to really see myself as I'm going to be kind. This is, mm-hmm. I I need to learn to be kind and turn that judge voice down a notch, many notches, and that everything's happening in the right timing. Like there is no mistake. Like this is okay the way it is. And that's relief. That is relief.
Yeah. Yes. And I will say, and as many of my listeners have heard, that I went through an experience with a significant other partnership that wound up falling apart after 20 some odd years, and did not think I would be 60 and single and literally starting over from scratch. Angie's been part of that journey. She's been over to my house and seen how I had to begin everything all over again. And I understand what you're saying about the impatience. And I'm like, wait, at this age, I shouldn't be starting all over again. And then I'm like, okay, stop for a moment, because I understand that's one of two routes. Either that's the immature me that is going, oh, this is what you're supposed to have by this age. And I need to move from the immature part of my brain to the intelligent part.
Mm-hmm.
Or it is right, the voice saying, hey, you're supposed to be further along than you are. And it's like, oh, you know what? You've got a really great point here. And so there must be something I don't know, and I need to reach out to an authority figure to be able to get that information, because I've got the puzzle pieces of what my life is supposed to look like. And I don't like the picture that the puzzle is showing. Well, it doesn't matter how many times I rearrange the pieces, it's going to be the same picture. So either the picture is immature or the picture is correct, and I need someone to come in and show me what the new picture is supposed to be. And
Could it be both? Could it be both? Because
yes,
if that's coming from a place of fear, if that voice is saying, well, you should be further along, and it's kind of shaming, a little bit of shaming voice going on. I think if we can make it a more gentle voice, and just bring compassion, like, hey,
what's the message? What's the message?
Yeah. Perhaps things should be different, but they're not. So
yeah,
if you can be kind and loving, then you'll get the message quicker, I think.
Yeah, because you talked about, sometimes being a bully. And decades ago, way back when, I was a bully in school. I was the one that picked on other kids. Well, what I was doing was screaming and crying for help, because I was being so bullied in my home environment that I was just acting out in social environments and educational environments what I was experiencing at home, but nobody could hear the message. They weren't as informed back then as what they are now. So if we can look past the pain and go, okay, what's the purpose? What's the cause? Yeah, let's turn down the voice of judgment. We're not going to turn it off, but just turn it down and go, okay, what's really causing this? What is it that we need to hear? And is it something that we need to act on? That's whenever we find that we can start moving into progress in a healthy way. So when
it's time to get a coach,
when anger and or life gets too hot to handle, what is it that you need to do? Okay. So as Angie and I were sharing, bottom up, we both talked about breathing, giving yourself space and place to be able to get your autonomic nervous system regulated again, and then start going from the top down and going, what's the message here? What's the frustration? Where am I hanging on to this? Where am I impatient? And what actions do I need to take? And both Angie and I are here to assist you. So Angie, if they want to reach out to you, what is it that they can do? How can they get a hold of you?
They can go to harmonyharbor.com. So harmony and then HARBOR.com. And I just want to do a little plug that I have a Heal Your Heart retreat coming up. It's online on September 11th through the 16th. So it's an hour a day, basically. And my contact number is 1-314-422-6520.
Excellent.
My email is Angie at harmonyharbor.com. Angie.
Okay. And if you want to reach out to me, coaching combined with hypnosis for rapid results that you will experience same day, you can either go to dawnlandrum.com or 1-636-699-7791. There you can book a complimentary coaching call where I guarantee a tip, tool, or technique that you can leave with that will work for you right away. And then you decide if you want to work with me, because I feel like I have to earn the right to be in your life. Angie, thank you so much for showing up today and giving us this great idea that we need to work with anger in a way where people can begin to handle what it is without harming them. So, all right, everybody, until we get together again, blessings on your journey.